All right, welcome back to WMA Now with your host Chuck Stevenson. So I got to watch this live interview Q&A session with Stamp Fairtex yesterday over on SCMP MMA. You know, normally I don't get into watching too many interviews with fighters, but because this one was happening live and it was the boys over at SCMP MMA, who I'm pretty cool with, I decided to go ahead and give this one a watch. And I got some interesting takeaways from it. Most of the questions were being asked by the hosts, but they also read some questions from the chat, and I even got a couple questions answered myself. And I definitely got some interesting takeaways from it. Of course, Stamp is fighting Seo Hee Ham at ONE Fight Night 14 on September, I want to say the 1st or 2nd. That'll be for the interim Atomweight Championship due to Angela Lee being out indefinitely. And there were some good questions. There were some good questions from both, the interviewers and the chat. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes and go over my takeaways from this. Okay, so one question I actually got to ask and got answered. I asked if she brought in any Southpaw training partners and sparring partners for this camp in order to deal with Ham. Because if you've watched Ham fight, it's no secret that she is a Southpaw fighter. She's left-hand dominant. That's her power side. And Stamp said that basically all of her sparring partners for this camp so far have been, Southpaws, which is smart. She mentioned Gian Rajwan's training with her, also a ONE Championship Atomweight fighter. And also, I forget the guy's name. He's a Thai fighter. His nickname is Baby Shark. But he's helping out Stamp, and he's Southpaw also. And said, yeah, basically all my training partners for this are Southpaw. That's smart. Like, that is the kind of thing I like to see from a fighter. That you're going up against someone with a style that is different than what you're used to, or you're used to going up against, orthodox right-handed fighters, but you're finally going up against a left-handed fighter. And so many just fail to bring in left-handed training partners. And how are you going to deal with a left-handed fighter in the cage if you're not used to dealing with that in training? So for her to bring in, several left-handed training partners and sparring partners, that's great. That is the type of thing you love to see from fighters, especially when they can afford to do so. Interesting question someone else asked. They asked her if she has like a go-to combination or a go-to move that she likes to throw. I'm trying to remember the exact wording of the question, but basically, like, if you're getting overwhelmed or if the fight is going against you, do you have a favorite thing that you like to go to? And Stamp mentioned that she doesn't have like a particular favorite combination or anything like that. She says she falls back on her rhythm and goes into her rhythm, which I found interesting because, watching Stamp, I never really thought of her as like a fighter who gets into like a rhythm. Because when you think of a rhythm, you think almost like you start to think like music or like dancing. And a lot of, the stuff that people highlight from Stamp's fights are stuff she pulls out of nowhere. Or they're like real sudden moves that she throws, and they're big. And not something that, she throws as part of like a pattern or something that you would really pick out from, oh yeah, she's in rhythm now, like she's got a rhythm going. Like some fighters you watch and you definitely think, oh yeah, they're in their groove, they're in their rhythm. Stamp, to me, and honestly most Muay Thai fighters aren't fighters that I think about really getting into a rhythm. That's my particular opinion anyway. So I found it interesting that she mentioned that, she talks about relying on rhythm and not really like having specific things, but just, going with her rhythm. And kind of piggybacking off of that, even though this question was asked at a different time, I forget what the question was, but Stamp mentioned that, or now I remember, one of the interviewers talked about, Ham only getting decisions since coming to ONE Championship in her 3 fights then, whereas before she was on, she had multiple finishes. And she felt that Ham hadn't been able to get into her groove, into her rhythm in ONE Championship, which I can agree with to an extent. So that was an interesting takeaway from that as well. And then the final takeaway I had from this interview, someone asked her if we can expect any of the step-in elbows like she landed against Gian Radzwan when she floored Radzwan in the 3rd round. And Stamp mentioned that because even though Ham is a kickboxer, because her style is so punch-heavy, Stamp feels that punch-heavy fighters leave themselves open to elbows, particularly the step-in elbow that she likes to throw. So that will be interesting to see how Ham can deal with the elbow game of Stamp. Because it's not that Ham doesn't throw elbows, but there was a period of time where when particularly when she was in Road FC, when she was the champ there, she wasn't even allowed to throw elbows because they're banned in that promotion. And you don't see Ham throw a lot of elbows otherwise. So that will be interesting to see how Ham deals with, the more Muay Thai heavy style of Stamp with all the low kicks and the elbows. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway, that Stamp sees that in Ham, Ham being so punch heavy, it opens her up for a lot of elbows. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good interview. There was definitely a lot of fluff, but I mean, that's every fighter interview nowadays has fluff. If you don't throw in some fluff, it's hard to get the fighters, go, and it's hard to get them to, relax and get into the interview. So I didn't mind that, but those were the 4 main takeaways that I got from it. If you want, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll put a link up in the description. Let me know any takeaways you got from it. But let me know your thoughts. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to Wmma Scene Now, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. See you next time.